let me ask you something. Imagine two kids. One hits the sack at 8 p.m. and is up at 6 a.m. The other goes to bed at midnight and wakes up at 10 a.m. Now, both got 10 hours of sleep, right? So it's all the same. But what if I told you that for their growth, those 2 nights of sleep are not even in the same ballpark? That just by shifting the timing, you completely change the biological impact of their rest? Well, that's the surprising truth we're going to unravel today. Welcome to Sleepedia, a little corner of the internet dedicated to the science of sleep and circadian rhythms. So let's just get right into it, because this question, it really gets to the heart of a huge misconception. You know, as parents, we're told over and over again how important the amount of sleep is. We count the hours, we track them on apps, we worry if our kids are getting their 10 or 11 or 12 hours. It's like we treat sleep like a bank account. As long as the total number is high enough at the end of the night, it doesn't matter when we made the deposit. But biology just doesn't work that way. This forces us to ask a much, much better question. Is it just about the quantity of sleep, or is the timing where the real magic happens? As we're about to see, the answer is pretty amazing. To really get why this timing thing is such a big deal, we need a better way to think about it. So for the rest of this explainer, I want you to picture this. Your child's body is a super busy, state-of-the-art factory. It's this incredible piece of machinery. And right now, during childhood, it's got one main job: to build. I mean, it is building bones, weaving muscle, creating new pathways in the brain, the whole shebang. But this isn't just any factory. Nope. It has very specific operating hours. And its most important, most critical work, well, that doesn't happen 24/7. This growth factory of ours basically has 2 shifts. You've got the day shift when the factory's open for business. It's learning, playing, eating, taking care of millions of little jobs. And then there's the night shift. This is when the gates lock, the lights go out, and the real heavy-duty construction begins. This is the deep, foundational work that can only happen when the body is completely at rest. And here's the kicker. Just like a real factory that's waiting on a midnight delivery, if you miss the start of the shift, you can't just make up for it by starting a few hours later. The whole production line is synchronized. The timing is everything. So what's the star product of this factory? What's the one thing this whole night shift is designed to produce? Well, it's a powerful little thing called human growth hormone, or GH. And this stuff is wow. It's the master architect and the foreman all rolled into one. It travels through the body and basically gives the orders. Okay, lengthen these bones, strengthen these muscles. Hey, go repair the damage from that tumble on the playground today. And during childhood, the factory is just cranking the stuff out at its lifetime peak. It is the single most important ingredient for growing up, and the body has a very, very specific way of making it. Now, you might think that this super important hormone is just released in a slow, steady drip all day long, like an IV. It makes sense, right? Just keep a constant supply going. But the body is way smarter and way more efficient than that. It knows that a constant low-level trickle isn't the best way to get big things done. So instead, it does something way more dramatic. Instead of a drip, I want you to think of a floodgate opening. Once a day, the factory unleashes almost 75% of its daily supply of growth hormone in one giant, powerful pulse. It's this huge, concentrated surge that's released into the system all at once. It's a massive biological event, a tidal wave of growth instructions that washes over the entire body. The body spends all day gearing up for this one single moment, and the trigger for it is unbelievably precise. And this is where it all clicks into place. The trigger for this giant pulse isn't just getting sleepy. It's not just any kind of sleep. It is specifically hardwired to the beginning of the very first cycle of deep, slow-wave sleep. This is the most physically restorative stage of sleep you can get. So think about that. The biggest, most important growth event of the entire 24-hour day is designed to happen right at the start of the night.
That's no accident. It's a critical piece of our biological programming. Let's bring this all back to the real world. We're going to do a little thought experiment and compare two kids. Both of them are getting the same 10 hours of sleep. The only difference is when they go to bed. Let's meet our two contenders. We have the 8 p.m. sleeper who's tucked in early, and we have the 11 p.m. sleeper who gets the same amount of sleep but starts way later. On paper, it looks like a tie, but inside their little growth factories, their nights are about to look totally, completely different.
Now, this is really the key to the whole thing. The 8 p.m. sleeper drifts into their first deep sleep around, say, 8:30 or 9 p.m. At that time of night, the body is naturally winding down. All those get-up-and-go hormones, like cortisol, they're at rock bottom. The factory is quiet. It's the perfect environment for huge, clean, super effective pulse of growth hormone. But our 11 p.m. sleeper, they hit their first deep sleep after midnight. They're pushing that crucial growth window right into the early morning hours, exactly when the body starts producing cortisol to get ready for the day. So their growth hormone pulse is happening in a hormonally noisy environment. It's like trying to have a super important meeting right next to a jackhammer.
So we're not just talking about things being a little less than perfect here. A late bedtime does more than that. It can actually actively sabotage the growth factory's entire production line. It's like someone is sneaking in and throwing wrenches into the gears. Let's break down the three main ways a late bedtime messes with that all-important growth hormone pulse. Okay, so here are the three main culprits, the three kinds of sabotage we need to watch out for. First, there's something I like to call the somatostatin shield. Second is a simple problem of timing and a shorter deep sleep window. And third, something pretty destructive called pulse fragmentation. Let's take a look at how each one of these messes things up for a kid who goes to bed too late.
All right, first step, the somatostatin shield. When a child gets pushed past their natural bedtime, their body goes into this overtired state. That wired but tired feeling. To keep them awake, it releases stress hormones. But at the same time, the brain releases another hormone called somatostatin. Now, somatostatin's job is to be the off switch for growth hormone. It's literally the brake. So our poor 11 p.m. sleeper finally falls asleep, but their body is already full of a hormone designed to stop growth hormone. They're trying to hit the gas and the brake at the very same time. And the result? The GH pulse gets stifled, and it never reaches its full potential. The second problem is just timing. Your brain has a schedule for sleep. The first half of the night is dominated by that deep, slow wave sleep, the bodybuilding sleep. The second half of the night is mostly for REM sleep, or dream sleep, which is for the brain. Around 4 or 5 a.m., the brain naturally wants to switch gears from body repair to brain work. Now, for our 8 p.m. sleeper, that's no big deal. They've already gotten hours and hours of deep sleep. But for our 11 p.m. sleeper, their deep sleep cycles are just getting started when the brain is already getting ready to change the channel. Their prime time for physical growth just gets cut short. And finally, we've got pulse fragmentation. An overtired kid is often a restless sleeper. They're in what scientists call a state of overarousal. This means more tossing, turning, and these tiny little micro-awakenings that you probably wouldn't even notice. But here's the problem. Every single time the brain pops out of deep sleep, even for a second, it interrupts the release of growth hormone. So that one big, powerful tidal wave of GH gets shattered. It becomes a bunch of small, weak ripples instead. And 1,000 little ripples just don't have the same biological power as one massive wave. So far, we've been looking at what's happening inside the body. But of course, our internal world is totally connected to the outside world. And there's one thing in our modern lives that plays a huge role in messing all this up. This brings us to the arch nemesis of our growth factory's night shift, a hormone triggered by light, whose job is the exact opposite of growth.
This quote really just says it all, doesn't it? the best way to think about these two hormones is on a seesaw. When one is high, the other has to be low. Cortisol is our get-up-and-go hormone. It starts rising early in the morning to wake us up and give us energy. It's all about breaking things down for fuel. Growth hormone is our rest and rebuild hormone. It's all about building things up. They work on opposite shifts, and they are natural enemies. You just cannot have both of them high at the same time. If their schedules overlap, it's going to be a fight.
So how do we set up this fight? It all starts with something simple: light. Let's just walk through this chain reaction. Step 1, a kid is looking at a bright screen in the evening. A tablet, a TV, even bright overhead lights. That light hits their eyes and sends a loud signal to the brain. Hey, it's still daytime. Don't go to sleep. Step 2, that signal puts the brakes on melatonin, the hormone of darkness that's supposed to get the whole night shift started. Step 3, without that melatonin signal, the body's entire internal night gets pushed later. And boom, step 4, the growth hormone pulse, which should have happened hours ago, is now trying to launch in the early morning, just as the cortisol army is starting its daily march to wake the body up. The enemy isn't just at the factory gates, it's inside, and it's disrupting the whole operation. After hearing about hormonal enemies and factory sabotage, this might all sound a little overwhelming. You might be thinking, how am I supposed to manage all of this? But the beautiful thing about our biology is that the solution is actually incredibly simple. There is one powerful tool that every parent has to make sure the growth factory runs perfectly every single night. It all comes down to consistency and defeating a very modern problem.
We all know what jet lag feels like, right? You fly across the country, and for a few days, your body is just off. You're tired when you should be awake. You're wide awake at 3 a.m. Your internal clock is completely out of sync with the outside world. Well, a lot of our kids experience a mini version of this every single week, and they never even leave the house. It's called social jet lag. It's what happens when we have a nice, firm bedtime during the week, but then on Friday and Saturday, we let it slide by an hour or two. To a child's finely tuned internal clock, that 2-hour shift feels just like flying from New York to Chicago.
You can see how this works right here. Monday through Thursday, that 8 p.m. bedtime is locked in. The growth factory is running like clockwork. The hormonal signals are perfectly timed. But then the weekend comes, and bedtime shifts to 10 p.m., so on Sunday night, you try to go back to 8 p.m., but the body's all confused. Its clock thinks 8 p.m. is the new 6 p.m., and you get this circadian misalignment. The factory manager, that internal clock, is totally scrambled, and that confusion doesn't just fix itself on Monday morning. It can take until Tuesday, even Wednesday, for the clock to fully reset, which means the growth potential for the first half of the week is already compromised.
So this is the big takeaway. We usually talk about a consistent bedtime as just, a good parenting tip, something that helps with behavior or makes mornings a little less chaotic. But the science shows us it is so much bigger than that. For a child's body to hit its peak growth potential, to conduct that hormonal symphony with perfect timing night after night, consistency isn't just a nice idea. It's a biological, non-negotiable requirement. It's as important as good food and clean water.
And here's the simple, practical advice. This isn't about being a drill sergeant or stressing if you're 5 minutes late one night. That's not it. But the goal, the rule of thumb, should be to keep your child's bedtime within the same 30-minute window 7 nights a week. Weekdays, weekends, all of it. This one simple habit anchors their internal clock. It sends a clear, reliable signal to the body every single day, and it makes sure the growth factory is always ready to run its most important shift, right on time.